When a government employee faces disciplinary action, they enter a system governed by a rigid mathematical algorithm applied to their financial future. The precise mechanics of this system are dictated by the Central Civil Services Classification, Control, and Appeal Rules, 1965, specifically the provisions detailed under Rule 11. Standard administrative interventions, such as warnings, letters of caution, or reprimands, exist outside the statutory penalty framework. These measures do not trigger Rule 11 and cannot legally bar an officer from consideration for promotion. However, the legal status of a warning changes the moment it impacts the officer's permanent record. Placement of an administrative warning within the officer's confidential report dossier marks its conversion into an adverse entry. This document now constitutes a formal censure, a recognized minor penalty under Rule 11. True disciplinary action begins the exact moment an administrative grievance crosses the threshold into the permanent, quantifiable statutory record. This diagram represents the 7th Central Pay Commission pay matrix. This grid serves as the physical game board where statutory penalties are calculated. Under Rule 11.3a, an officer can be penalized with a reduction by one stage, targeting a single coordinate, such as an officer drawing 50,500 rupees at Level 7, Cell 5. When enacted, the formula drops the officer exactly one vertical cell. Their pay moves to Cell 4, locking in at 49,000 rupees. Because this is classified as a minor penalty, the rules apply 3 strict temporal and legal constraints to prevent permanent career damage. The reduction cannot exceed a total duration of 3 years. It cannot have a cumulative effect on future pay, and it cannot adversely affect the mathematical calculation of the officer's final retirement pension. There is also an absolute floor limit built into the matrix to protect junior officers. If an officer is already drawing pay at the absolute minimum first cell of their designated level, a stage reduction penalty is mathematically impossible and legally forbidden. A stage reduction is a precise, temporary subtraction from an officer's present value. It is engineered to penalize the present while preserving the long-term financial architecture. This diagram shifts focus to horizontal time freezes. Rule 11.4 outlines the withholding of increments, operating along the calendar axis. The core mechanism is a freeze. The physically drawn pay remains locked at the current cell for the penalty's duration, but as increment dates pass, a shadow calculation continues. This advancing shadow represents notional pay, the salary they would have legally earned without penalty. At the exact end of the defined penalty period, the freeze lifts. The locked physical pay merges with the ghost indicator, restoring the officer to the higher cell naturally reached. However, there is a crucial financial caveat to this restoration process. The increment is restored entirely on a notional basis, meaning it is applied without arrears. The physical money lost during the gap between the frozen pay and the notional pay is permanently forfeited to the government. Withholding increments weaponizes time itself. It creates a hidden shadow salary that the officer can only physically access once their disciplinary debt is fully paid. Major penalties under Rule 11 sub v involve a more severe intervention, the reduction to a lower timescale of pay, grade, or post. This animated chart shows the complex mathematical calculation required to execute this demotion. An officer's pay in Level 9 must be meticulously mapped backward into Level 8. The officer's pay is recalculated to the exact stage they would have drawn had they continued working in their previous lower post. Operationally, this process is the exact mathematical reverse of standard pay fixation applied during a promotion under the fundamental rules. The government's ability to demote an employee is subject to a hard legal boundary defined by the highest court in the country. In the landmark judgment of Nayadar Singh v. Union of India, the Supreme Court established the absolute limit of administrative demotion. The court's rule dictates that a disciplinary authority cannot reduce an officer to a rank or post they never historically held in their cadre. Practically, this means a direct recruit assistant section officer cannot be demoted to a junior secretariat assistant. That lower historical reality does not exist for them. They entered the service at a higher level. Administrative punishments are structurally bound by an officer's historical reality. The government possesses the power to demote an employee, but it does not possess the power to invent a past they never lived. This timeline visualizes an edge case, a second disciplinary penalty issued while an initial penalty is active. Unless explicitly stated otherwise, they run concurrently. During this overlap, an override protocol initiates. The higher penalty takes immediate precedence, fully dictating the pay matrix calculations. Once the higher penalty expires, the original lesser penalty automatically resumes control of the pay matrix, provided its original currency period is still active. Rule 11.3 deals specifically with the recovery of actual financial loss caused to the government by an officer's negligence or breach of orders. An old 1971 executive instruction suggested that recovery should be limited to 1/3 of the officer's basing pay. That procedural instruction has been ruled unwarranted because it contradicts the statutory rules. Under the current statutory reality, the government is fully authorized to recover the absolute entire amount of the financial loss from the delinquent official. To ensure proportionality, the disciplinary authority must spread the recovery installments over a sufficient period. This prevents the officer from suffering personal financial hardship disproportionate to their actual negligence. The CCS-CCA rules function as a deterministic, predictable framework for precise, calibrated administrative equity.